Here's an update on striper fishing in the canal by End Eddie Doherty, a retired Massachusetts court clerk magistrate appointed by the late Governor A. Paul Cellucci, author of 7 Miles After Sundown about surf casting the Cape Cod Canal for striped bass.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Cape Cod Canal. We've got a east ebb tide that's just starting right now. And I'd like to just start by thanking all of you who came to my book signing that Barnes & Noble had for me last month. It was great, it was terrific, a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed it. So fishing on the canal has been hot or cold depending on the day. Just like always, it's hit or miss sometimes, and so but June started off pretty well. Vito Massico and his father Vinny came from Long Island and did well one day. They come here quite often. They come here often enough to be characterized as true canal rats. And Vinny, they both caught some fish that day, but Vinny caught his biggest fish was a 19-pounder, and his son Vito caught a 28-pound striper. So congratulations to them, that was great. Vito's a corrections officer at Sing Sing, the famous prison on Long Island in New York, where Lucky Luciano and a lot of infamous criminals did time. And it's always good to see Vito here. He's a great guy. So I just want to remind everybody that the size of a keeper now is the same as last year. Keeper striped bass is 28 inches to less than 31 inches. And so if it's other than that, if it measures other than that, you have to put it back in the water gently. Then, toward the middle of June, it pretty much died down, and we were in the doldrums for a couple of weeks. Nobody was catching fish. And then the biggest action we saw was a whale swimming in the East End. And then right after that, Matt Sater saved us. He hooked into an 18-pound striper one morning, a mid-morning tide. Matt's only 15 years old, and he's a great kid, so I was happy he caught that 18-pounder. He started off a good week. And then Slapshot Scotty Yule caught a 35 and a 45-inch with a White Magic swimmer, and that was at the tail end of a east flood tide. I was fishing one day, next to Mike Dick, who's a nice guy, and Mike was casting so far, he looked like the second coming of Ron Ara. This lure was just flying across the canal. He was throwing a 3.5-ounce Yozuri Green Mac Hydro Monster Shot. What a mouthful that is. But he hooked into a 40-inch striper that day. It was about halfway down into the water column. And so that was a nice fish, 40 inches. I caught a 37-inch striper with a striper gear Green Mac Rocket. I was on a breaking tide between some real serious downpours where rain was all over us. And that fish fought way above his weight. It was 37 inches, but when I was reeling it in, during the fight, I thought it was probably about 42, 43 inches. And one day, Bob Bull McKinnon, who's a well-known canal rat, he had a 3-day topwater bite, and Bull caught 34 fish in 3 days, and the biggest one was a 22-pounder on his, I think his favorite lure is a Wally's Green Mac pencil, and so I was happy for Bull. He's a great guy. And so there's a lot of great fishermen on the canal, and so I just want to run through a list of guys who have caught slots or better. A slot is the keeper, 28 to less than 31. So these guys have caught slots or better. Tim Hollywood Petrarca, Bucktail Billy Jenkinson, John Doble, Todd Bluefish Benedict, Polly the Painter Gravina, Dancing Ben Famino, Breaking Bob Ware, Everyday Al Mazico, California Joe Gray, and the top hook of the month goes to a famous guy, Bill and the Grill Prados. He caught a 31-pound striper, and it was the fish was riding the tide towards Cape Cod Bay, and Bill was using a Green Mac Striper Maniac pencil. These are made by a guy from Maine, so he named it Maniac, Striper Maniac, and this fish just exploded on Bill's lure and splashing water and shooting spray all over the place. It looked like a car wash, and it's typical. The most fun catching a striper is on the surface. That's the most exciting way to catch a fish, because they just explode on that lure, and this one was no exception. So congratulations to Bill and the Grill. Nice job. Just a few announcements. This evening family fishing clinic is coming up. It's a free clinic July 18th from 5 to 8 at the Cape Cod Visitors Center in the East End. 60 Ed Moffett Drive in Sandwich. It's sponsored by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Division of Marine Fisheries. And the Marine Fisheries Division will have staff there to teach people how to fish. And there's no experience necessary, and they're going to provide the gear and the bait. You have to register though, and that should be a good event for especially people just learning how to fish. It'd be a nice thing for the family. I also have to tell you about I try to focus on the positive, but I have to tell you about a difficult, terrible situation that happened over near Aptuxet on the Cape side. Some morally bankrupt moron ended up taking a picnic table and putting it in the middle of the service road, and then another one on top. And they're pretty heavy, so I have to guess and say it was more than one. It's tough when somebody does something awful, but when two people think this is a good idea, it's even worse. And in front of the picnic tables, they ran a taut fishing line and tied it on both ends so it was tight. And so around 2 o'clock in the morning, a fisherman was coming from Bell Road, and he was riding east on his bike, and his front tire hit the tripwire. He went flying over the handlebars, crashed into the picnic tables, facial lacerations, and it could have been much worse. The poor guy could have been killed. So the police investigated it, and I hope they find these guys, because that's just a terrible thing. I used to ride along at 2, 3 in the morning. I had a headlight on my bike, but I used to just mostly look at the water as I'm riding along, because you don't think you have to guard against something like I just described. And I hate to talk about negativity, but I just think that warrants a warning to people, any fishermen who are watching this. Just be careful, and if you don't have a headlight on your bike, then just ride slow enough so that you can react appropriately. So on a happier note, Jack Creighton, who was he's a retired chief of police. He used to work over next to the district I worked in, and he fishes the canal, and he's a past president of Cape Cod Salties, and he won the flounder derby for the month of May. Caught an 18-inch flounder for that club. That's just for the month of May, but that's a nice fish, Jack. I'm sure that was very tasty. And the Cape Cod Canal Region Chamber of Commerce, their president and CEO is Maria Oliva. They do a great job, and she does a terrific job of leading that group, and they really do a wonderful job of promoting business in the area. And anyway, the visitor center in the West End is connected to the Chamber of Commerce building, their office. And in the men's room there are some beautiful murals. If anybody's in the area, you should check it out. Obviously, if you're a man, you can't to go in the men's room. I wish it was actually outside the men's room. But anyways, it was done by a local artist, Kathy Hallam, and who I don't know, but I've heard great things about her. And so there are murals in there of the canal. And one of them is of John Doble. When you walk in, you look on the left is John Doble. And she actually used one of his famous photos to paint this, and as soon as I looked at it, I'm pretty sure it was John. So if you're in that area, it's some beautiful artwork. And they honored the late Sergeant Dick White at the Bourne Scenic Park. Dick was a great guy. He was a friend of mine. He was a sergeant with the state police who lost his battle with cancer last year. And he actually started as a Bourne police officer, but they named a road after Dick at the Bourne Scenic Park, because the streets in there have street names, and it's a nice ceremony and a well-deserved honor for Dick and for his family. He was with the Attorney General's office and did several other jobs, and was just a really nice man that I had lunch with a lot, and I really enjoyed his company. So I just want to tell you that, you know, one of my favorite TV shows is Law and Order SVU, Special Victims Unit. And the reason I love this TV show is because after having spent close to 40 years in the court system and in and out of police stations and courtrooms, I can tell you that it's a very realistic show. And one of the actors on there is named Ice-T. I think he was a rapper before he became an actor. But anyways, he's a really good actor. I enjoy watching it. And he was just reciting the script. But he's talking about, you know, in between cases they're working on there, he's talking to one of the other people, and he says that he was in Sheepshead Bay and he caught a 35-pound bluefish. Well, the world record for a bluefish is 31 pounds 12 ounces. So, you know, Ice-T was just reciting the script that was given to him. It's too bad the writers didn't put that he caught a striper, you know, a striped bass. But Ice-T set a world record and he didn't even know it. So I think that, you know, that show is spot on when it comes to criminal justice, but I think they could use a fishing consultant, to tell you the truth. But anyways, my tip of the month is that there are 2 pole 50s, and so the poles on the canal are run in sequence of 5. So at the east end, it actually starts with 10. I never knew why it didn't start with 5, but it goes 10, 15, 20, 25, all the way to the west end where it's 375. And so these poles are pretty much the same on both sides. But when the guy who was, I assume, working for the Army Corps of Engineers, who put those signs on the poles, must have lost track of what he was doing, and so he made 2 pole 50s. So it goes 45, 50, then 50 again, and then it goes to 55. So if you want to meet one of your friends and tell them to meet you at pole 50 at 2 o'clock in the morning, make sure you tell them which 50. Or if you record your catches, like a lot of fishermen do, and you put down what pole you caught a fish at, just make sure you get the right 50. So until next time, enjoy yourself, be safe, and catch a big one.
Want your nice canal catch mentioned? Email the details to eastendeddie789@yahoo.com.